Low dose for depression and anxiety. Yo, what's up? It's someone that's someone, and welcome back to today's report. Today's report is coming from Trace Elements off Herowood, when this happened, 2017. The substance is used, lithium orotate, at a dose of 10 to 15 milligrams. The route of administration, sublingually and orally. Gender, male. Weight, 150 pounds. Age, 27. For his prior experience, ketamine, nitrous oxide, alcohol, antidepressants, and anxiolytics. And his set, he was looking for treatment. Okay, so here's the first lithium report. This just got voted out next recently on the latest poll, and this is one of the most common medications prescribed for bipolar disorder. Simply put, this works by acting as a mood stabilizer. Ideally, this helps patients manage the frequency and intensity of manic episodes, and just regulating emotions overall. We'll break this down more after the report. I'm sure you'll enjoy this one, so without further ado, let's dive right into this. Low-dose lithium for depression and anxiety. I have experienced recurring depressive episodes and anxiety of increasing severity, particularly social anxiety, since roughly age 13. Recently, they appear to have been worsening. I was in bed for several days at a time, increasingly obsessed with suicidal thoughts. I purchased supplies for an attempt with a high lethality method months ago and was frequently thinking of using it, and I was making no progress on work and drifting further away from friends. I was often unable to even respond to messages and had become fixated on the idea that others must be judging me negatively. I had intense stress whenever I approached communicating with most people. In the past, I had been fired from jobs, lost friends, and been dumped from romantic relationships due to behaviors stemming from anxiety. I've had difficulty in forming or maintaining work relationships and career development goals, which have in turn contributed to further increase of depressive intensity over time. I did not see a future anymore. I have tried many different antidepressant and anxiolytic medications and dietary supplements. I've had a variety of different classes, alone or in combinations, to attempt to combat these problems. So I suppose I was treatment resistant. I made sure to get proper dietary vitamin and mineral supplements. I had occasional bouts of heavy drinking that never seemed to resolve anything but the most immediate short-term anxiety. Exercised every day I could muster the energy. Got enough sunlight and vitamin D. Talked to anyone I knew who didn't make me feel too anxious as often as I could, even if that wasn't very many people. Tried cognitive behavioral therapy, specialized programs for social anxiety, etc. Tried ketamine and nitrous oxide. Experimented with various other recreational drugs, trying to either self-medicate or attain some sort of realization that could be applied in the future and seeing past my problems. They produce temporary relief at best, with undesirable experiences or intense and unpleasant side effects at worst, and were legally and medically risky and unsustainable. Nothing seemed to stick. Feeling particularly desperate, I went further down the list of common treatments for anxiety and periodic depression, and decided I was willing to take a risk on potential kidney or endocrine damage decades later if it meant a chance at staying alive until then. So I rush ordered some lithium salts from online vendors. Lithium orotate in particular seemed the most suitable from background research. I had planned to begin at a low dose and escalate towards something approaching typical medical doses for bipolar disorder, until I either found something that worked or couldn't tolerate the side effects anymore. To my immense surprise, even a 5 mg equivalent dose produced a noticeable antidepressant effect, but with none of the drowsiness, numbness, flatness, mental fog, sensory anomalies, or other side effects I had come to expect from antidepressants. Perhaps I have some dietary deficiency, and although lithium is sometimes considered an essential trace element, even the best multivitamins do not contain it. After adjusting upwards slightly, I feel completely unable to feel depressed anymore. I no longer feel intensely seized by anxiety whenever I need to communicate with someone. I no longer have trouble getting out of bed, or feel lethargic constantly, or want to die on an ongoing basis. I feel more mature and less a slave to the fluctuations of my mood. Although I do not feel capable of feeling intense euphoria anymore either, but that was so rare already that it seems like a minor price to pay. As little as 10 to 15 milligrams per day of elemental lithium in this form has been enough, and this has remained stable over time. The effect is evident immediately upon absorption. Within a few minutes sublingually, tastes like chalky mineral water, or 10 to 20 minutes if swallowed. No apparent tolerance or dependence to date. Very cheap. No meaningful side effects, apart from a dry mouth for a while afterward if taken sublingually. I have been able to cut back significantly on other supplements and medications as a result. I am now in the process of attempting to rebuild my life. Alright, so lithium. As I said before, this is one of the most commonly prescribed medications for bipolar disorder. But like here, it also sees use for depression, most of the time as an alternative after antidepressants have been tried. But not only this, as we see, as it did help clear up the feelings of anxiety this user had. But before we get into that, let's start with some of the basics here. So if you're into science, you may actually recognize that lithium is on the periodic table, being the third element. It's grouped as an alkali metal, but to make it consumable for humans, it's extracted and turned into a salt. It also gets pulled from brine pools, where last year they've hit a peak high in lithium production. Some companies even pull it from recycled batteries, where some amounts of lithium are recovered. But as a salt, it becomes consumable where lithium can be delivered in the body, which, looking at our body, we all contain low levels of lithium. And we can see that lithium is present in a lot of common foods actually, such as certain nuts, fish, vegetables, cereals, and in smaller amounts in dairy, mushrooms, and meat. It is also very common to be within drinking water, which the levels for this are going to vary depending upon the geographical location, which some studies do indicate that higher concentrated areas could be providing potentially healthy benefits. But the amounts of lithium you get from dietary intake are going to be in the microgram range, maybe a few milligrams or so, depending. But in Europe, for example, some countries, the people are lucky to get 10 micrograms each day. The thing is, we don't necessarily need a lot of lithium intake because our bodies do a good job at recycling that. Around 80% normally will be reabsorbed. But not everyone is going to be the same with this, depending on various conditions beyond diet, such as stress, environmental factors, toxic influencers, and natural physiological need. So that's where some may need the use of a lithium supplement or medication. But some studies show that even a small difference in concentrations can have a favorable impact on health and depression, decreasing the rate of suicide. Being deficient in lithium is linked to having an unstable mood, increased agitation, increased rate of suicide, and rate of violent crime. Basically, there's a good body of evidence suggesting that if your lithium levels are off, then this very well could lead to a hit on your mental state. But when we look at prescribed lithium, things become a bit of a different story, specifically when it comes to the dosage, the risk of side effects, and the risk of adverse long-term health effects. With just this report, we see that trace elements noted taking 10 to 15 milligrams per day, which this is way more than what the average person may consume naturally. This kind of dose to me makes sense though, especially if you have a deficiency. But keep in mind that this report was describing the use of lithium orotate, which this is not the prescribed version of lithium. The prescribed version of lithium is lithium carbonate. I won't get into the chemistry, but basically both of them are salts and have some differences when it comes to actual lithium attained and potentially efficiency. The amount of lithium attained from carbonate is anywhere from 3 to 10 times more than what's attained from orotate. And the thing is, carbonate is dosed much higher than what's recommended for orotate doses. A low dose of carbonate is considered to be around 150 milligrams, and depending on which study you go by, that can be anywhere from 10 to 25 milligrams of elemental lithium attained. Now the doses with orotate can be kinda iffy online. What I mean by this is that the doses listed can be the amount of actual lithium attained and not the full weight including the orotate. Lithium carbonate doses go by the full weight and not just the lithium attained. So basically, trace elements dose here could be comparable to a low dose of prescribed lithium. But the average dose for prescribed lithium is anywhere from 900 to 1800 milligrams per day. That means that some patients are getting over 100 milligrams of pure lithium every day, possibly more. Over 10 times as strong as the yield you'd get from the average orotate dose. Though carbonate may be stronger, it may not be necessary to provide a therapeutic effect. The thing is, lithium isn't necessarily a go-to option right away, because it does carry risk, especially in the long run. Namely, the biggest concern long-term is potential damage to the kidneys and thyroid. This is because the kidneys and thyroid are both actively involved with lithium. The kidneys play a role in excreting and filtering it, while the thyroid acts as a major storage site of it. And this isn't specific, but basically, when you supplement in that much lithium like that, over a long period of time, it can wear the functioning down of these and open the door for a condition to develop. There is also a chance for lithium toxicity, which this can either be acute or chronic, usually occurring because of decreased excretion of it, which this could be a result of the substance itself because it does cause a degree of dehydration, or it could come from something else by not having enough sodium or having a kidney problem. Most people do survive this, but it doesn't come without a handful of undesirable effects and potentially long-term problems. Chronic toxicity is often defined by neurological difficulties such as tremors, nystagmus, and an overall change in mental state. With acute, there's normally strong gastrointestinal distress. There is also a chance for serotonin syndrome to occur because lithium does cause serotonergic modulation, increasing extracellular levels. So that is something to be wary of when it comes to combinations. So because of this, orotate may look like a better alternative to carbonate. But the big thing with carbonate is that there's decades of research behind it, and a lot of it. While with orotate, much more is still needed to get a better picture. The thing with orotate too is that there is research suggesting the bioavailability of it may be better than carbonate, that it crosses the blood-brain barrier much easier. Orotate might be a better alternative, but more research is needed and should be looked into. But it probably hasn't been considered as heavily because there's an abundance of lithium carbonate. But besides that, the way lithium works is pretty complex as well. It doesn't have a direct impact on the brain, but more so affects things on the cellular level, which we won't get into that deeply here, but it has a role with serotonin, downregulating norepinephrine, inhibiting GSK3 enzymes, and a handful of other things that could be contributing to the overall effect. As of this point in time, it's unknown how lithium works exactly to provide the therapeutic effect it does. It technically isn't classified as one, but lithium is essentially a micronutrient we need to function. We can see that in those who are lithium deficient. Even looking at a little bit of the history, the soda 7-Up even had it as an ingredient at one point in the early 1900s and advertised it as one of the benefits. So it's not like this is anything new or unknown, but you really don't hear that side of it these days, more so just the medication aspect of it. But I definitely think this substance deserves more attention and research, especially considering how common it can be. But we're going to end it there for today. We only scratched the surface with lithium here, and there's a lot more to it. So if you want to see another report of it, or anything at all, let me know down in the comments and we'll do that. Make sure to check out the other content, the Discord, the Patreon, and more, all in the description. And do me a favor and subscribe if you haven't, and hit the like button. It's been Someone That's No One, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.